Thank you, Ashley. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining and bearing through the technical difficulties. But happy Wednesday, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you all are. Please continue to throw in a Q&A where you're from, location, your organization, as well as any other thoughts that you have, since we are working with a chatless webinar today. But nonetheless, we persist. I am Mariah Brown, the Strategic Partnerships Manager here at Action Network, and I am joined by an esteemed panel. This has some really exciting things to share with you all. First up, we have Ashley Wilson, our Head of Partnerships at Quiller, Marshall Seed. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Marshall. I apologize if I'm not, and please correct me. He's the CTO. We also have Hillary, the CEO of Quiller, and then Mike Nellis, the founder of Quiller. Today, we'll be talking about our integration with Quiller at Action Network, and give you a little bit of demo and answer any questions you may have. But first, I would like to just tell you a little bit about Action Network if you all aren't familiar. Action Network is the best in class. I may be a little biased, but the best in class email mobilization tool set that you can use for your political campaigns and progressive causes. So this includes any digital actions, emails, petitions, forms, fundraising, anything you need to mobilize your constituents. We are the tool set for you. Through our cooperative development model, we build what the movement actually needs. So we work hand in hand with practitioners, organizers, and progressives alike. For example, the DNC, the CLC, Daily Coast, and Quiller as well, just partners that are committed to this movement and actually use the tool sets. So just so you know that is pretty much how our roadmap operates. But specifically for the sake of this webinar, we integrate with leading organizations, other tool sets that can make your lives easier. And I think Quiller is a prime example of that. So thank you all for joining, and I will pass it over to you, Ashley.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you so much for bearing with me and my technology today. I think I'm going to try to share my screen so I can do this, Hill. Give me 1 second. I think I'm good to go here. We good to
Yep,
go?
looks
All
great.
right, there we go. All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I so appreciate you all taking the time out to be with us to talk about such a timely and important conversation to have. I know you all are so busy with gearing up for campaign season. Depending on where you are, I know that we have some folks from Canada who I know they have an election later this year, as well as, with us. So I really do appreciate you taking the time out to talk about this. So want to just go over our agenda really quickly about what we're going to be talking about. So we did our welcome to all of you all, and then we're going to do an overview of generative AI, a product overview for all of you all in terms of for Quiller, and then talk about the integration between Quiller and Action Network, and then early learnings and success metrics for generative AI. I think we're still trying to figure out how does this work within our space and how how we measure success. So we want to share like our early learnings and bring that to you all. And then of course, some Q&A. And so next, we're going to do our overview of generative AI. I'm going to introduce Mike Nellis to come over and chat with us about that. But I just want to take 2 seconds to just mention I joined the Quiller team about 3 months ago, and it has been such a pleasure working with Mike. And Mike is just the person who's like, okay, we need to do action, right? Here's a problem we have. We need to do something about it, and has taken on the role of leading us, to that, solving this problem. And so, Mike, I will pass it to you.
Thank you, Ashley. Can I say it's also been a pleasure to work with you for the last 3 months? I've enjoyed getting to know you. Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Nellis. I'm the founder of Quiller. I'm also the founder of a digital agency called Authentic with many clients that use Action Network, some of whom I imagine are probably on this call today. I have 2 decades of experience working with social impact organizations such as yourself. That ranges from working for large presidential and Senate campaigns to nonprofit organizations like the United Nations and Red Nose Day and other things like that. And so about 2 years ago, I started going down a rabbit hole in order to solve a series of problems that I have at my firm, Authentic, relative to content creation, that led me to kind of get ahead of generative AI. And so I'm going to take just a few moments to explain, what generative AI is, at least to me, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the problem we're trying to solve with Quiller before handing it back to Ashley. So we asked ChatGPT to tell us what generative AI is, and it came up with, generative AI refers to AI systems that can autonomously produce new and unique content such as text, images, or other media. It's a very basic answer. What I would say is I would liken it to either like a giant search engine that is drawing from a bit of information. So think like a broad generative AI tool would be like ChatGPT, which is trained on the vast majority of the internet. A more narrow one would be Quiller, which in the case of like fundraising emails is trained on fundraising emails and then sort of narrowed with the experience of people like me who have raised an awful lot of money online. I would also think of it like the predictive text you have on your phone, right? You're writing a sentence, you're trying to complete it. It suggests 2 or 3 words to close it out. It's doing that based on what you've written before. So it has like a pool of content. It is a more sophisticated version of that. And what I want to dissuade people from, and I know we probably have folks, I saw there's a couple people on here I know who are like, very high into AI and some folks who probably never touched it. Like this is not, movie style robots taking over, right? This is like a tool that can be very helpful for us. And we're sort of excited about that. And so to jump into the problem, Ashley, you can go to the next slide, or whoever's controlling it. Thank you. So really, I wanted to address 3 problems that I've seen in my 20 years working through this. The first is burnout culture. And I think everyone on this call knows that either in the political or the nonprofit ecosystem, we're all being asked to do way too much. We don't have enough resources and we don't have enough people. So if you're a digital strategist working for a nonprofit, you're a stakeholder manager, you're a social media manager, an online fundraiser, a videographer, a photographer, a graphic designer, and like 10 other things we didn't have space to put on the slide. And so this is why we have a talent problem. And actually, I would say we don't have a talent problem. We have a retention problem in this space. There are plenty of people out there who are talented, smart, creative, that want to work in these spaces and do good, but they can't stay in it because they're not paid enough and they're being asked to do too much. So they go take a corporate job so that they can start a family and live a life and clock out at 5. I think generative AI presents an historic opportunity to accelerate the work that all of us can do in a way that'll help us like clock out at 5 o'clock and be regular people while also contributing to a better world. And then the second problem is the lack of high quality content. The truth is most people are better editors than they are writers. And if you look at the way that like the vast majority of political content is developed, a lot of it is scammy and spammy and scary. And some of that is like, yes, that works in the short term. I would argue it's very unethical and it's the type of content that Quiller will never produce, just to over communicate that. But it's also like a lot easier to produce that type of content than it is to produce like narrative driven content. And it's because starting is really difficult. You spend a lot of time staring at a blank screen. So if you're a development manager at a nonprofit and you're working with an agency, like you're also likely frustrated that the tone of voice isn't right. It isn't well written. And so now with AI, we can not only develop content really, really quickly, but we can set the parameters for how your organization talks and what type of content it should generate. And so whereas it may have taken somebody an hour to write a decent first draft of a fundraising email, your AI tool, if programmed correctly, can now generate that in a matter of seconds. And then you can spend 5 to 10 minutes working on it to get it where it needs to go, because that final 20% requires human creativity, which artificial intelligence doesn't have, but helps scale it up and makes it really, really good. Quick problem number 3, and then I'll hand it back to Ashley, is also an affordability problem, right? I run an agency called Authentic. We do really great work, but we're fairly expensive in order to do the work that we want to do. We employ about 50 staffers. There are a lot of like local legislative candidates who can't afford to hire us. There are a lot of like nonprofits that don't have the budget to pay $5,000-$10,000 a month to hire a firm like mine. So being able to build a generative AI tool that can help you with your first draft generation, and as we'll talk about with our Action Kit partnership, being able to code that email into your CRM really quickly, it's going to save you a ton of time and it's going to be incredibly cheap. Like the Quiller account is $185 a month. That's much cheaper than hiring a firm. So I think there are a lot of local candidates and there are a lot of local nonprofits that are leaving money on the table by not communicating with their supporters regularly and their members regularly. So I think generative AI presents a great opportunity to solve that problem as well. I think I have one more slide. So that's where Quiller enters the chat, right? So Quiller can generate, unlimited custom email drafts for teams to customize, review, and send. It's AI-driven content, but it's still based on the parameters that you set for it. We have fundraising, organization, and SMS content right now. We'll be adding additional content types very soon. You have full customization of your style, tone, and voice. We're integrating with top CRMs like Action Network, which you'll see very soon. And the most important thing I want people to know too is like you own your content. We're not here trying to say that we own your content. Like we're empowering you to develop your own content that you and your organization own. We're in use right now for, I believe over 100 campaigns, electoral organizations, advocacy nonprofits, and we've got a really user-friendly interface. I think we have a tool that's like really easy to use, and we're sort of trying to, I think a lot of people complain about how hard ChatGPT is to get it to turn out a good email. Like Quiller's a lot easier to get it to turn out a great email. So I think I have one more slide, right? So just to talk about, AI is a really scary thing at times, right? I think some of that is a little bit, the technology is doing things that require human creativity on some level. And so it's a little bit scary, but it's also that sort of like, movie, iRobot, The Matrix kind of thing, which I totally get. I think is fair. But we have a responsibility to be good practitioners of this new technology. And so the way I would frame what Quiller's trying to do is like, we're the good guys in this scenario. Like there are bad guys out there that are going to get outsized coverage. And everybody probably saw this week that somebody, mimicked Joe Biden's voice to create a robocall encouraging Democrats to not vote in the primary yesterday. And like, that's awful. And like, we're never going to do anything like that. But as much as we need to plan for a good defense of how people are going to use this technology against us, we need to have a good offense of how we're going to ethically use this technology to help us win elections and make the world a better place. So we've done a good job of like working to create rules of the road, thinking about our ethical frameworks. We want to use AI to solve real problems and pain points that exist in this industry, pain points that were not solvable, things like burnout that we just kind of for the last 20 years have gone, well, I can't do anything about that. And like, well, we can do something about that now because we have new technology to help us. So and really, I think as we go, we want to hear from everybody here, like what responsible and ethical AI means to you. But Ashley, I'll hand it back to you now. And thank you all for your time.
Yeah. So, in speaking about just how we want to make sure we stay within the conversation about AI, want to make sure you all are invited into the event going on next week. So, if you are in DC, please feel free to, I think Hill's going to drop the link that you could sign up to attend the was it the happy hour is hosted by Action Network, so which is great. So just further partnering and having this conversation about AI in electoral politics and just making sure that we're doing what we need to do to spur this conversation and do this ethically and responsibly. And so with that, I believe we're going to do a product road walkthrough. And so let me make sure I can do this right because, of course, technology has not been my friend today. Give me 1 second. I'm going to just get out of here. All right. And share my screen again. Okay. Cool. I'm sure there was a much smoother way for me to do that, but this is going to be the right way to do it. All right. And so I wanted to show y'all a walkthrough of Quiller, right? So you all can see just how easy it is to use Quiller to incorporate it into your workflow and creating content. And so right here, you see this is how you start your Quiller experience, right? You're going to put in your organization basics, right? And for candidates, we also have the same thing, but it would just be like, what's your candidate's name? Where are they running? And for organizations, we're asking for organization name and where your efforts are focused, right? Then this is where you're really starting to train your model, right? And train your workspace on your organization. So you're going to put in here mission and goals, issue areas and initiatives, as well as impacting to success. This is how the model is going to understand what is going on. What does your organization stand for? What have you been doing to be successful? And incorporate that into your emails. Next, you have your writing style training. This is one of my favorites because this is definitely different from your typical like your chat GPT experience, but now you're going to get an opportunity for Quiller to understand your type of writing. So this is where you're able to customize your workspace, able to show like what kind of tone you take with your emails and all of your content. So you could put up to 5 examples of content, right? And then you'll ask Quiller to analyze the writing style. I'm going to go back to the description, right, real quick. And then here you'll see, okay, your writing style is formal and authoritative. that might not be yours, but this is the type of analysis that it's doing. Sentence structure, transition style, all of which is going to be applied to your emails when you're generating content. And then you have your basics, right? Your email formatting, all that good stuff. Your donation links. If you have ActBlue Express, you could do the code block here. And then of course, CRM integrations. So we do have, Action Network as one of our partners, and we're going to talk more about how that integration looks when we're ready to export over to Action Network. Now I'm going to go over to, we're going to start to create some content. And actually, let me go back one. Sorry, y'all. Here we go. So create an email and create your content. So here are the types of content you can create with Quiller. So hopefully you guys can see that when I switched over. Okay, perfect. And so you can see that you can do fundraising emails, supporter engagement, rewrites, and SMS. And as Mike mentioned earlier, you could also, we're going to release more content types like op-eds and press releases. So we really appreciate that feedback from you all just to be like, hey, you know what kind of content we would really need help with? This and this. And then we'll take that into consideration as we're doing our product roadmap. But now we're going to create a fundraising email. And so here's what you're going to do. It's going to ask you for this information to create the email. And it's going to ask, all right, what is prompting this request, right? And so we're going to say for this organization, we're going to, oh, empower our, oh, sorry. There we go. I know. See, Quiller's like, you need more stuff. This is not enough. There we go. Empower Women's Choices needs donations to fund awareness campaigns, right? And then over here, we're going to say the donations will help with solving the problem by educating public about the importance of reproductive rights. Those reference points that we had in the beginning, here's where you're going to bring them in here so it can be incorporated into the email. So I'm going to say, I want youth outreach and advocacy training as the reference points. Who's the email from? How long should it be? This was a direct feedback from our partners. They wanted to control for length, right? So you can make this a short email, a long email. I'm going to say, let's go with a medium email for this one. Another thing I really love is being able to say what kind of tone you want to take with this email, right? And so being able to say, I want something, let's say emotional and hopeful, and then the urgency. Hey, we need to raise money. I think that's pretty urgent. So we'll put that in there. And the goal is to raise uh $10,000. And now here's where the magic happens, right? You put all of that in there and then you say create your first draft. Within seconds, you're going to get a first draft of an email. It's 70% of the way there. And you're able to keep clicking on try again until you're able to say, okay, which one do I like the most? And so let's say we're going to click on it 46 times. And that way you can be able to pick which one you like the most, right? So click on it. And then, so I think this is about the fourth time. Then you can go over to version history and check each of your versions to be able to say, okay, which one do I like the most, right? I'm going to go over to an email I actually liked that I generated right here, right? And then here you go. Here's an email once already in your tone, in your voice, that you're able to then say, all right, now it's 70% of the way there. Let me finish it off by putting that human touch on it and making some edits. And then once that's done, finalize and export. And so when you do ready to export, you can export it to Action Network. I'm going to pass it over to Marshall, our CTO, who's going to talk about the integration.
Hey everyone, I'm Marshall. I'm going to talk a little bit about the integration. As Ashley showed you earlier, we have a couple integrations set up. It sounds like today a lot of people are interested in the Action Network export. So what we've shown so far is that you are going to draft your email, find something that you're happy with, hit the export button, and what will come up is that you'll be able to go directly to Action Network once you've set up your API key in your account. So here what Ashley's done is she's clicked in, use that email that you saw with that subject line and that body. And now you're in Action Network. You're able to see exactly what you've created in a draft format. And here you can go ahead and edit further. You can get feedback from colleagues. But basically, we want to give you as much as possible when you come into Action Network from Quiller itself. So if real quick, Ashley, if we want to go into the campaign info and look at the integrations. So here we have our Action Network like setup. We have a guide for you if you want the step-by-step for you to be able to set it up. Ashley set it up very quickly. I think it only took like 5 or so minutes to set this up. And of course, like we're here if you need like further help, but it should be relatively straightforward. Basically, you'll get your credentials and API key from Action Network, and you'll put this into Quiller. It'll set up that connection and it'll allow you to do that export that you just saw. Of course, we're still making improvements to this connection. We've gotten some feedback from users like yourself, but we continue to want to meet you halfway and make sure that this is actually useful for your workflow. That's what's really important to us, is that we're making your lives a bit easier with this connection. If you go back to the connections real quick, Ashley. So here, and as you've seen, like we have Action Network, we also have Action Kit, Google Docs, and NGP Van. There'll be further integrations down the road, but these are the ones we currently have. So as you go through, if you end up using this integration, of course, we would love your feedback, your thoughts, as we continue to improve this tool. So with that, I'll hand it back to Ashley.
Awesome. Thanks, Marshall. And I don't even think it took me 5 to 10 minutes. It was so much quicker to get this integration going. So I really loved doing that. And it was just so quick to get that set up. So thank you so much for all your hard work in getting this integration together and, making sure that our partners have a very smooth, workflow when it comes to like getting content from Quiller over to Action Network. So with that, I'm going to go back to my slides. So I'm going to stop share again because I'm just going to do this manually so that way I don't mess it up. There we go. And there we go. Okay. And then share my screen. I'll get better about this when I learn how to use Zoom better again. All right. So Quiller features. So we just want to make sure just to kind of run through the features that we talked through, the different content types, right? You have your integrations, as well as the type of organizations that Quiller supports. So again, it's candidates, it's advocacy organizations, it's electoral orgs and committees, our union partners, all of y'all. Like we would love so much to like work with y'all to just get this to a place where that it is such a resource and a support for you and your staff. So as y'all are joining Quiller, whatever recommendations you have, we're so open to hearing that and making those features available. And then some partnerships that we have currently, these are some of our early partners, state committees, our electoral orgs, as well as our advocacy organizations. And then just some testimonials, right? We've heard some great feedback from our partners. And so from Wisconsin Dems, who's one of our early partners, who's really loved working with this, as well as a local candidate who used this, again, as Mike mentioned, for those candidates who are just cannot afford, getting a digital firm or even hiring additional staff. This is where you'll be able to really help and maximize your digital program. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to our CEO, Hillary. Again, been working with Hillary for 3 months. It has been so great learning so much about the AI space and how we have a great opportunity to really frame this conversation around how we use this for good. So Hill, pass it over to you.
Thank you, Ashley. Sorry, folks, I have a little bit of a cold, but thank you, Ashley. It's been so fun getting this off the ground with you and with this team. Thanks so much to everybody who's joining today. My name is Hillary Lear. I'm the CEO at Quiller. Previously, I was at Higher Ground Labs for 4 years, doing a lot of our ecosystem research and partnerships, including the election tech surveys, the landscape report, and we just continued to hear about the need for greater efficiency, combating burnout, and just making life a little bit easier for campaigners and partners in our space. So I'm so excited to be working with this team to help bring this tool into the campaign world and beyond, into the nonprofit world for 2024. We're so excited for the feedback that we're seeing in the chat, and just want to dive a little bit deeper into this community of praxis. It's really through the discussion, experimentation, feedback, and collaboration that we will define rules of the road for generative AI and responsible use, and also develop best practices, right? Because this is a brand new type of technology that's entering the space and shaping our workdays. And so the more that we can share what we're learning, best practices, what to expect, the faster we can all adopt this new technology and make the most of what it offers. So I just wanted to share a quick recap of some learnings that we're developing in partnership with our early clients and pilots, and offer these to folks on the call to consider as you explore adopting a tool like Quiller into your workflow, how you might want to measure success. So a couple of partners have been really looking at dollars raised per hour spent. I want to go back to something that Mike mentioned much earlier about combating burnout and the way that we can introduce AI into this space. We can either look at it as kind of a threat or a replacement for staff, or an augmentation or a superpower. And what you'll find using Quiller is that every part of the user experience has been designed as an augmentation and a support to your existing staff. So the way that we look at implementation, at draft generation, finalization, integration, and overall reporting is about supercharging your staff to be able to raise more money, make more voter contact, and make the most of that workday. So I just want to emphasize that as we think about success metrics, I would really encourage everyone to think about how this can be looked at as supporting staff to accomplish more within a more manageable workday. And to that end, raising more dollars per hour spent can be very helpful, or voter contact. And Ashley, if we could just go back for 1 sec, sorry. Thanks. And also looking at net fundraising increases per month. So as Ashley demoed, setting up the integration and developing an email, what we learned from polling our partners, and would love to hear from folks in the chat if this resonates, from starting with a blinking cursor on a blank page to having a final draft of an email, we heard from our partners as an average of a 90-minute process. Between generating the content, finalizing it, fact checking, copy editing, and shipping it is about a 90-minute process. So we're looking to reduce that for a staff person down to about 15 minutes, and then explore with the team what else they'd love to do at that time, what creative ideas or strategies they'd like to experiment with if there was finally a little bit more capacity and we weren't bottlenecked on content creation per day. Working with staff to run those experiments, identify the creative other ways they'd like to spend time or what else they'd like to do with that hour back in their day, and then compare that with the overall improvement for net fundraising increases over the course of a month or a pilot. Could be another really good way to look at the success metric of Quiller in your organization. So I actually have an example of that we'll get to right at the end, but wanted to kind of share these metrics to kick off the convo. Next up, as you think about adopting Quiller and other generative AI tools with your staff, again, I want to be very head-on. AI can solve a lot of problems. It can be a great superpower for your teams, but it absolutely has to be fact-checked and reviewed before going to your supporters or voters directly. So really encouraging people to think about generative AI as a really talented intern that's just getting started, right? That's the quality of content that you're going to receive. It has to be fact-checked for current event accuracy, emotional nuance, and just to make sure that the facts and figures are correct. So people, places, dates, a fact check needs to go in there. And so it really does need to be built into the workday, not looked at as a replacement. And so as we start to look at AI more appropriately and responsibly implemented for teams, the jobs conversation really changes. But that needs to happen at every level in an organization. And those conversations about any job concerns need to be had head on. It's not something that can be tiptoed around or discussed. It's really important to have these transparent conversations directly with staff so everybody feels comfortable using these tools and making the most of them. I'm really confident in that process. What we're learning from our early partners is once that happens, adoption is really strong and people get the full value that these tools offer by being comfortable and confident in adoption from open conversations. The other thing that we really encourage is for people to have conversations about the pain points. We can all very quickly point to the most tedious part of our day, right? What are the tasks that are most repetitive or exhausting? And by having an open brainstorm about that and figuring out where generative AI can help solve some of that tediousness, it can inspire us all to see what else we would do and unlock a lot of that creativity and strategy that your team holds. Last but not least, it's really important when adopting new technology to make sure that the tools and companies that we partner with match the values that we hold as progressives. So we also want to be a resource and share transparently how we're looking at that process. A lot of the open off-the-shelf Gen AI tools like ChatGPT actually forbid political use cases. So by having a custom LLM that we've trained specifically on democratic and progressive fundraising content, we've helped with bias mitigation, improving the quality of content that you'll get that actually matches the voice and how we all talk about these different issues as progressives, without a lot of the permissions lockouts that you don't want to have happen during crunch time. Additionally, having a rubric for privacy, security, and data ownership, making sure that you own the data that you put into the tool is really important. So we're forging ahead with this rubric of values, and we want to be really transparent and collaborative in that process and play a role as the first to market generative AI tool, seeking to do this right, seeking to do this responsibly, and sharing out what we're learning along the way. So we'll continue to share these learnings and invite everyone to join the conversation so that we can all really build this out together in the best way that we feel good about. Lastly, I want to share a quick example of a digital team that trialed Quiller a couple of months ago. They committed to use the product for 1 month in a 5-person trial. Before they began experimenting with the tool, they said, okay, we're going to define a success metric that at the end of our pilot will evaluate how much time we saved and what else we did with that time and what the effects were. They agreed to use Quiller for all first drafts that they generated for their organization for 1 month. And they had a really great success with the tool. With the time that they saved, that same team was able to do a lapsed donor re-engagement strategy for more personalized contact. And they were able to finally launch a peer-to-peer program that they'd been wanting to launch for a long time, but just hadn't had the time. The result of not only the improved content quality and efficiency and other programs that they were able to build in as a result of saving all that time led this organization to a 10x increase of funds raised in the month that they piloted Quiller. We're so excited about the success story, and we'd love to continue to pilot these and develop more learnings as we go. So at this point, we really want to invite the folks on this call to join us in piloting Quiller. It's been so phenomenal working with Action Network to build out this integration, and we'd love to expand the opportunity to use this tool to more individuals. So Ashley, I'll hand it back to you.
Yep. Thanks so much, Hillary. And yeah, just like Hillary mentioned, we would love the opportunity to partner with you for you to pilot and use Quiller just to see how much it could be beneficial to your team, your campaign, your organization. So definitely scan the QR code. We are offering a 50% off for your first month of using Quiller. And definitely I can tell you just from the conversations I've been having, just how much people are like, this is helping me so much with saving time, being able to be more efficient, and even maybe bringing in more for those agencies, bring in more clients, support more people. And so yeah, so definitely click on this, get your 50% off. I want to thank you all for your time so much. I'm going to pass it over to Mariah. I know we wanted to leave some times for some Q&A, but I'm going to leave this up here. You have my email address. You also have oh, Mariah just shared the link, so which is great. And so yeah, so any questions, Mariah? I think some were getting answered as we were going along.
Yeah, I just want to say that Mike and Marshall and Hillary have been doing a superb job answering any questions, but we did also want to encourage you to keep going. You have the staff here. Thank you to everyone. But we do have a current question from Ollie. Can we cancel at any time is there any contract length or?
Yeah, so there's not any no contract length, right? It is a month to month. Of course we would love for you to use Quiller and stay on Quiller, but again, we're so early on. We want the feedback. We want you to use it and for it to be something that you find helpful and resourceful for your team. So it is month to month. And just yeah, and then of course we're open to communicating any conversation you want to have about your usage. We're here to listen.
Awesome. And
Anything else?
Can I add to that too, that I think a big part of this is like we know the problems we're trying to solve, but the problems are persistent and different for everybody. So one of the things we want to really, really hear is like, where do you see this technology being able to help you, and how can we build custom solutions that work for you and your organization? So please, even if like right now you're like, hey, this is cool, it's not for me, give us your feedback so we can make it for you, because we're trying to solve, burnout and talent retention and a lot of other issues. So we really want to get that right for you.
absolutely.
Yep. No, totally. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Mariah. Go ahead.
Oh, no worries. I just appreciate it because, the feedback is definitely important in our line of work. And then we also have another question. How long is the 50% offer valid for?
All right. So it is through the end of this month. So if you're looking to get set up, I would encourage you to do this now, try it out. But yeah, it is through the end of this month.
Awesome. And then we have another question. Are you built on ChatGPT or some other LLM?
I'm going to pass this to Mike and our CTO.
Yeah, I could jump in on it. Then Marshall, if you want to add anything, we're not built on ChatGPT. We're not built on OpenAI, though. Like OpenAI and most of the major large language model companies actually prohibit the development of any content that they believe to be political or quote unquote high risk, which is, I think, kind of silly. But I don't get to make the decisions for Sam Altman and the OpenAI team. But so we've sort of cobbled together like our own, large language model things that are offered and available. And like we've had a lot of really great success with that. And Marshall's done some really great work. We always talk about like adjusting the knobs of the different, levels. And then we've had it read like a lot of great fundraising emails and other types of content. So, but one of the just broader challenges we're going to have as an ecosystem is that coming out of what happened in 2016, where there was mass disinformation from right-wing groups, any big tech company that has funding is going to be hesitant to let political campaigns or any, and by the way, there's a lot of advocacy organizations and nonprofits on here. They're going to say political campaigns, but they're also talking about you, because a lot of times you're talking about issues, like we've seen social media companies, not allow people to run, abortion ads, even when they're not necessarily like political or advocacy focused. So I think we're going to run into the same challenge, which is like over time, they're going to clamp down on our ability to talk about anything that might cause them a PR headache in one way or another. So we've got to build our own solutions to this. So that's just my quick answer to that. Marshall, if you want to add anything, you take it.
Yeah, no, I think that was a good answer. Definitely, like this stuff is new and very interesting. If anyone wants to chat more about like LLMs and AI in general, you're always free to hit me up. And maybe I could take the next question too, which sounds a little bit related, which is like, how protected is the data that you upload? This is probably one of the most important things that we take to heart. We have like an external facing privacy policy that hopefully gives you a good idea of like how much we care about this, but we don't use any of the data that gets fed into Quiller to try to retrain the model or essentially like do that. We want to respect the data that comes into the platform, and the LLMs that we are connected to. We have a strong understanding of like their privacy policies, and we've made sure to clamp down on that as much as possible. So if there's any of those concerns, we try to address them up front, but you're always able to like talk with us if there's like some special cases that you're curious about.
And the other thing I want to add to this conversation too, just to like over communicate, like you own your data. So like not the data you put in and the data that comes out is yours. And I want to over communicate that because like ChatGPT, or like my favorite is Claude. I really like to play with Claude, which is like the Amazon version of ChatGPT. Like, they are free or really, really cheap. They're, some of them are like 10 bucks a month. They're cheap because they want your data, right? So like if I was to put like voter data into ChatGPT, I don't know how that's going to play. So like I always crack the joke, like, I don't trust a company that was founded by Elon Musk to have any of my data. It's the same reason I'm not on X anymore. So I think we're trying to build solutions that are sustainable and safe for the ecosystem and the movement. I would hate to build a tool that was accidentally like, improving fundraising emails for Republicans or something like that. So, and that's why we love working with like Action Network.
And then
Certainly.
there was a question here about, is it only trained on fundraising, like fundraising emails? And no, and this might be my fault if I ran through the type of content types that Quiller can output, but it's fundraising, supporter engagement, rewrites of emails that you already have and content and SMS. And so the model is trained on just content from our progressive ecosystem, right? And so so it's not just fundraising emails.
And to answer John, the first part of John's question too about like letter writing, we don't have a specific one for letter writing, but we could build one, right? So I think for folks who are listening to this right now, if you have particular content types or specific types of emails you want to be able to write, let us know, and like we can model either a different prompt or like find other examples and have the tool read it and build our own custom way to do that.
Yeah, it's great timing for that because we are in beta for op-eds this week. So training the model specifically on a little bit more long form narrative, slightly different orientation to the CTA for letter writing and persuasive long form. And so far, so good. Knock on wood. It's looking great, but it's a really good time for early partners to come in, pilot that with us, experiment, just have at it and give feedback because that's really how we continue to refine the model based on feedback and the ratings that you give of drafts. So it would be a really good time to come on board to experiment with that. And I love the feedback coming in from Ollie and others on the chat today. This is so helpful. And this really is what we're craving and looking for. So would love to continue the conversation from here. I know we're right at time. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you so much to Action Network for your leadership in the space, your partnership with Quiller. We really appreciate the space that you hold and the community that you're building. It's an honor to be a part of it. And thank you so much for having us today. Please do stay in touch and we look forward to the future.
Of course. Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you all.
Mike, Ashley, everyone else. Thank you all for joining and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mariah. Bye everyone.
Thanks, all.
Mariah.
Bye.